I'm a huge fan of Batman the Animated Series. I think it's one of the greatest TV shows ever made, and it did produce a really excellent movie in the shape of Batman the Mask of the Phantasm, which is regarded quite rightly by a lot of Batman fans as the definitive Batman movie. Recently, Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman, passed away, which was quite sad for me, to be honest, because it just means we're never going to get him voicing Batman anymore. He is, as far as I'm concerned, the definitive voice of the character. Whenever I read Batman comic books, I hear Kevin Conroy's voice in my head. It's just so ingrained. They did another movie a few years later in 1998, Batman and Mr. Freeze, or Batman Subzero, Batman Mr. Freeze Subzero. It's had a few different variations on that title from what I've seen, but yeah, I always just knew it as Batman Subzero, in which he goes up against Mr. Freeze, a character that was made a heck of a lot more popular than he'd previously been as a result of Batman the Animated Series. I watched this movie again. I've seen it many times before, but it's been a few years, and I thought I watch it with my kids. I've been trying to get my kids into Batman the Animated Series. They're just coming to that age where they're ripe for it. So I'm like, hit them while they're young. I felt this was the perfect one to start with. Maybe like Mask of the Phantasm for my youngest might be a bit too intricately woven in the story department. There's a lot of character depth and stuff going on in that film that he'd probably just tune out. Whereas Subzero is a perfect introduction, I think, because it's quite heavy on the action and it's quite a short film as well. It's only 67 minutes. But I've always really liked it, despite some obvious criticisms, some failings about it that I've always recognised, but they've never really bothered me in the way that they might some other people. For example, there's some crazy stuff in it, like Mr. Freeze having these two polar bears as his henchmen. Which, it works better in the movie than that sounds. But yeah, he has these two polar bears that do his bidding. I mean, circus performers train bears and use bears, so it's not out of the realm of possibility, I guess. There's a certain amount of suspension of disbelief that has to come with that element. But yeah, aside from that, there's not quite as much character work going on here as there was in Mask of the Phantasm. Again, much shorter running time. It's trying to do something different to that movie, in the sense that this is more about the action. It's more about just an adventure, because we've got Batman, Robin, and Batgirl in this one. So I think it's more interested in just having this action romp, which is fun, fast-paced, and very well animated. It's, you know, some of the best animation from the animated series in here, particularly a lot of the action stuff towards the end. Some really nice stuff when there's some explosions kicking off and Barbara Gordon's coming down some wires, and it's very manga-esque in its delivery. I do really like the animation in this movie. My kids loved it as well, as something of an introduction to Batman the Animated Series. My daughter in particular said she really loved it, so score. So Mr. Freeze, at the start of this film, he's out living in the Arctic. Obviously perfect conditions for him. He's got his wife out there in the cryogenic tube, and he's just living out his days, minding his own business with this little Eskimo kid that he's kind of taken on since his parents died. And yeah, just living life until some stupid military guys come blasting through the ice in their submarine and force Mr. Freeze's hand, basically, because the cryogenic tube that his wife is in cracks, and now she's basically she's slipping away. He needs to get organs fast. It's a write it on the back of a postage stamp story. You know, he kidnaps someone to harvest the organs, and Batman and Robin have to find him. That's it, really. But what I like about the movie is we get to see Batman's detective side here. You know, we've a lot of talk about Matt Reeves' recent Batman movie, really great film, still my favourite film of last year. And the thing that people love about that, one of the things people love about that, is that Batman's actually doing detective work in it. And we get that here. For the first half of this movie, Batman and Robin are racing against time, trying to find Barbara Gordon, who's the woman who's been kidnapped. And they have to dig up dirt. They have to get on computers. They have to rummage through files in offices. They have to interrogate people. So I like that. It shows, again, that detective side of Batman. The last half of the film is more your action-packed adventure kind of story in which our three heroes are going up against Mr. Freeze and this other guy that Freeze has kind of roped into his plan. There isn't really much more to say than that, because like I say, it's a short movie. It's more about the action than the story, but it's very enjoyable. It's some really top quality animation, and it flies by, and I really enjoyed it with my kids. And if you want to introduce your kids to Batman, to the animated series even, I would say it's a good place to start. Maybe start with the episode Heart of Ice first, and then this kind of follows on after that. The biggest downside for this film for me is the fact that it is in 4:3. Now obviously Mask of the Phantasm got a cinema release. They did a proper widescreen ratio for that, whereas this film was just a straight to DVD affair, which is a shame because, yeah, they stuck with the 4:3 ratio that the animated series had at the time. I'd love to see this in widescreen. I wish it had been made in widescreen, but there you go. It is what it is. But it doesn't hinder my enjoyment to a great degree. You know, it's still a really great film in 4:3. Let me know your thoughts on Batman and Mr. Freeze, Subzero, down in the comment section below. Thank you for watching this review, and until next time, crack it.